The greatest book that's ever written, Dr. Seyfuddin Amous. Thank you very much for delivering to us the Bitcoin standard. Indeed.
Praise be God.
Praise be God. That's the one.
May you have many steaks. I started reading a book, funnily enough. So one of those videos which you made me watch, the Great Reset Pod.
Okay. So you've moved away from Hustler magazine.
Always got a love for that.
Here we are, the 4Bs, the world's most bullish podcast, brought to you once again in part by Dr. Evil 10%, myself, Sir Neverlook. He's not here, unfortunately, Mr. All-In, and then Mrs. No-Show.
It sounds like Mr. All-In is in a cabin in the woods. Hopefully he gets returned to us in good working order, because we do need his knowledge occasionally to correct us.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for everyone that's tuning in still. Episode 26 was the great misinformation. and I guess it'll be the great misinformation part 2 if it's just me and you today once again.
What should we say? Buy doggy coin? Buy cum rocket? Something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Just this is purely educational and for entertainment purposes as well. This is not financial advice, but we're just gonna continue on to plebs giving the masses our views and opinions.
Let's be fair. Let's just not even pretend. Don't buy any shit coin. Don't buy an altcoin. Buy Bitcoin. Just we'll start Bitcoin. Simply. It's not going to go any other. We can pretend for about all of a minute, but then I felt a little bit ashamed of myself. And if you're not buying, read about it, understand your market. If you're not understanding what inflation is by now, where have you been? So it is
surely they must be feeling it in their back pocket in terms of inflation.
Yeah, you can no longer, you're having to pay more for your steak, or if you're woke and eat tofu, I'm sure your tofu is costing more.
You tofu eaters out there, let's cancel all our vegan listeners.
Is it really compatible, veganism and Bitcoin?
Oof, now that's a debate within itself as well. I don't think so.
I'm not as entrenched in my Twitter, in my Bitcoin Twitter as a Mr. All-In, but I don't think I come across them. They all seem to talk about steak.
Yeah, steak is the way forward. Steak is a real Bitcoiner meal. And I'm all about the steaks. Talking of stakes as well, we put our stake in the ground last week. Seamless link there, and we nailed it. We got it right, didn't we? We said you've got to pump it up, and even myself, Sir Neverlook, has seen that the price has increased. So, Dr. Evil 10%, can you give us an overview of what the price is now, please? Drum roll.
So this moment is £46,000, £329.55. So increasing yet again. We're still in bullish mood.
Always.
And people are telling us it's a bubble. It's a tulip bubble. It's a tulip bubble which comes back and gives more.
Yeah. It's the.
Don't worry. It got deep. It happened. The end of Bitcoin happened earlier this year, and it's back.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's that? Is that like a zombie tulip?
Absolutely. I want them to continue to say that it's dead, because I don't want them to buy. I want them to have fun staying poor, and for us to continue to amass more and more sats.
I get that, but there's also the inevitable. Like, it just seems like it's inevitable at the moment, but it's going to go further than I ever imagined at first. You're watching the dollar fail. You're watching various different currency. What's it? The Turkish lira fail at the moment. You've seen the Lebanon currency fail. We've seen various South American. Is it the Argentinian peso,
yeah,
the Brazilian, whatever it is, are all going through high levels of inflation or hyperinflation. And so we're seeing all these currencies fail, and it's only going to get worse. I think I was listening to something today, and actually it's in one of our segments. I won't ruin that, but it's basically, as I kind of mentioned, it's like a drug addict. The more you use it, the bigger amounts you have to give, and it's just becomes so sickly that it ruins everything.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And I guess, it's playing itself out quite easily, isn't it, in terms of the whole game theory? And it's not locational based. It like you just said, it's happening in South America. It's happening in terms of Africa with Turkey. And I'm sure, without a shadow of a doubt, it will be happening in Europe as we speak, and the UK will be no different. The price of everything is going up, and as always on this show, it's a recurring theme. Surprise, surprise. Thank you for all of those common listeners that come back in again and again. We're going to talk about inflation. Usual suspects.
Don't worry, it's just transitory.
Okay.
This is, I think, a good explanation about inflation. If you've got 100 pieces and someone makes 50 more, and this is 100 pieces, it means that your 100 pieces are worth less because it's 50 more. It's simple, kind of like economics. If someone prints another 50, then they're basically worth half as much. And this is fundamentally what's happened to the monetary supply. Is it keeps on happening. So every 15 years, it halves your buying value, your buying power halves. So they've printed so much money. And they're saying inflation is transitory. So explain to me, how come houses worth, I don't know, 50 grand in the 1990s and now they're worth 400 grand? How come you could buy a steak in a restaurant for probably about a tenner in the 90s and now it's 20 something quid? There's so many examples of this. And we talk about transitory, it stimulates the economy, but all that's happening is your wage is not rising, but all your expenses are rising and squeezing you harder. But somehow it's all right because it stimulates the economy.
Absolutely. And I think in this day and age as well, with consumerism and the amount that is being pushed in front of everybody's faces to buy, I'm sure, Dr. Evil 10%, that the adverts have hit you somehow of like quick buy before Christmas, because there's going to be a mad rush of things that are all sold out, and it's all there as a, it's like an evil incentive, isn't it, to get people really buying more.
It. I can't work out if it's actually a shortage or a ploy, but if it's a ploy,
I think it's a ploy.
But if it's a ploy, all they've done is move them a month earlier.
Yeah.
Like I probably will buy soon, but that's because I always try and buy October, November, so I don't have to do it in December, because I hate rushing around buying crap for the kids and my wife.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I have been watching, fuel shortage. There are shortages in the south, as all the morons were jumping on the petrol pumps, whereas in the north, we did not have fuel shortages. I was fine. I could go and fill up whenever I wanted. I drove past the petrol station, empty, a couple of people there.
Mm-hmm.
Must be
gave him a middle finger as you drove past in your tank.
But yeah, I remember showing all these shelves being empty, but it's back to the toilet paper shortage of, was it 2020?
Yeah.
But there's only toilet paper shortage because the fucking papers printed it.
Yeah, exactly. You should have used those same papers that printed it as the toilet paper.
Yeah. Do you know my response was like, if we really have a toilet paper shortage, we need to get people back to work, or alternately, I'm sure I'll find a way to survive.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't need 400 toilet rolls. I know someone who did get quite a lot of toilet rolls.
Idiot. Yeah. Oh gosh. Right. Well, should we kick off? Should we take a look at the agenda? As always, the format is simple. For anybody listening on all of our various different streams, so whether it's YouTube, Anchor, Apple Podcasts or Android Podcasts, all of the notes are in the show notes and all of the links can be found in there so you can follow. But as always, we're just going to go through the week of what's been happening in the world of Bitcoin and finance and give you our take on it. So where do you want to kick off?
I suppose we could just start off with one of the kind of stories which is helping point Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it's finally got its ETF. So big news. I think this one's from Coinbase. I mean, I see two sides of this with an ETF. Is why can't they just buy Bitcoin? Person direct. But then it is, I suppose it is expanding the investor base is one way. So it's spreading the word. It's in a way bringing more risk onto other people or exposure. So it's spreading the word of Bitcoin. Oh Lord.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, the ETF is the easiest way to get a little bit of exposure to Bitcoin without necessarily buying Bitcoin. And for those people that would want that, then it's fantastic. So the exchange traded fund for Bitcoin is being launched, and there's one at the moment, but apparently there's going to be about 4 in total that are all going to have like exposure to Bitcoin. That means that all of the hedge funds can also buy into this as well. And so therefore the hedge fund money that's out there, the likes of Peter Druckenmiller, Ray Dalio, of course. Hey, even Warren Buffett, because he's not doing so well at Berkshire Hathaway. And when I say not doing so well, I mean in terms of his percentage to returns. Warren's still financially very sound and rich. But, they can also buy into this.
We will give Warren a helping hand by Bitcoin, Warren.
Absolutely. Warren, you slow dinosaur in terms of coming on board, but don't worry, we will give you a hand. And I'm positive that his customers will have been knocking the door down, literally, to want to get into this, as has happened with others as well.
I suppose one way to look at this is if we do move towards a currency, will be, I suppose this would be one which Gaz could probably articulate better. But if we do move towards a currency, you hold an ETF, you don't really own it. If you haven't got the keys, it's not yours.
Yep.
So this is a risk about Bitcoin. Like, I think when I first got into the kind of Bitcoin scene, I was looking more of a store of value, whereas now I'm seeing it as a currency, especially with understanding things like the Lightning Network. And if we do end up moving towards a currency, then there's going to be all kinds of obstacles in the way. And if you own an ETF, are you actually going to have anything at the end of the day? So I kind of do look at it and think, is it the right way to go? But then again, I suppose it is people dipping their toes in.
Yeah.
I won't be. I've got my Bitcoin.
Well, sorry, it's Stanley Druckenmiller. That's who I was thinking of. And then you've also got the likes of Peter Lynch. I was just thinking, his name's not Peter. So yeah, you've got Stanley Druckenmiller that's there. So for anybody that then, writes in the comments that we've got it wrong, I recorrected myself before we go on there. So yeah, let's make sure. But, these guys, they want to get good returns for their customers. And this ETF is big news. And this is how Bitcoin continues to eclipse anything else that has ever come before it. It's had no marketing whatsoever, apart from simple word of mouth. It's had no marketing team saying...
Not forgetting, hey. But what about the greatest book ever written?
Oh, well, the greatest book that's ever written, Dr. Saifuddin Ammous, thank you very much for delivering to us the Bitcoin standard. Indeed.
Praise be God.
Praise be God. That's the one.
May you have many steaks.
I like that. Yeah. And also he's going to be, maybe in time for Christmas, delivering us another gift as well, which would be the fiat standard with appropriate postage and packaging pricing as well.
I think I am going to order it direct.
Now
we got some decent postage because it'll support him.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like, whilst I am kind of going, will it be as good? I wouldn't have got where I am in my mindset without reading the Bitcoin standard. So I feel like I owe him.
Yeah, absolutely.
May convert it to Bitcoin. So I won't be paying him in Bitcoin, so I'm not giving that away.
No, not at all. Yeah, they do, or he does give you the option to obviously pay in trash cash or simply buy in Bitcoin. But I'm sorry, Saifedean, you'll be getting my trash cash on this one. I think that's a great investment for anybody listening as well. If you haven't already, certainly invest into yourself and also into the Bitcoin Standard book, Bitcoin Lessons, and the Fiat Standard as well, which is soon to hit shelves with a physical copy. I do think that it's going to be a good one, but can it top the original? Let's see. So, have you ever bought into an ETF? Or looked at anything like this? I remember we were thinking about, pre-Bitcoin days of building our own type of ETF with an all-weather stock funds.
I have through
Vanguard.
I think they're ETFs anyway. Like, I've got a Vanguard, which I've still got money in because I'm obviously being Dr. 10%. I can't commit.
Its true colours are showing now, everybody.
Yeah, I can't commit all my money to Bitcoin. Admittedly, a lot more than I ever would be comfortable with is in Bitcoin. Yeah.
He's creeping up from that 10%, isn't he?
I was going to say it's a lot more, especially with the surge.
Yeah. Are you going to taper back by any chance? This is a question I was going to ask. So are you going to do like what hedge funds typically do and then only hold the 10% and try to diversify and put your money into something else? Or
it's been going for my hedge.
Yeah.
It's been going for my hedge. Should I sell shares because of the inevitable recession happening? But I think I'm going to stick with my shares at the moment, just hold them for 10 years as usual and just ride out the recession as a kind of a hedge against the Bitcoin, because the Bitcoin has surged from its original position. So it's money which I've invested in what I thought was a smart way.
Even though the smart and the faster money is on Bitcoin, because this is going to be an amazing 10 years.
I always think there is risk. There's always a risk because it always is adoption. So there is always that element. I think it's got to happen. But there's always a part of me which says it may not, because you've always got things like the dollar in place, the dollar, the yen, whatever else, and the world powers. So it's not just a straight, it's happening. I think it should happen, and I can see how it's going to happen. And I'm actually becoming more and more sure it's going to happen, but I just can't put everything in one basket, especially with having a family.
Oh, well, on the adoption front, I mean, we've got a couple of things there, and I know we're going to cover it off today in terms of Strike and Jack Mallers, but, crypto is on Twitter now in terms of tips. Have you seen that?
If we move to kind of like the adoptions, we've got a few adoption stories after this.
Yeah.
So I think it fits in quite nicely, but I want a bit of a spread. Admittedly, it's basically shares, some ETFs, and then it's Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is literally taking up more and more and more of my portfolio.
It's the apex predator, people. Apex predator, the number one. It's going to eat your stocks alive.
I've invested a lot more than I ever thought I would in Bitcoin, is how I put it. And I'm very happy with my investment. I do think about more, but I feel that if things did go wrong, there's always that level of risk. So I'm not willing to go all in like Mr. All In, hence the name, and hence the Dr. Evil 10%, but it is significantly more than 10% in what I have in Bitcoin.
Here's a question then. If you hadn't have invested that money into Bitcoin, what would you have done with that money?
It probably would have been gold. with the current scenario.
Okay.
So I was umming and ahhing about gold because whole 2020 lockdowns happened. And I went, this isn't sound money. There's going to be all kinds of shit going on in the market. And I was looking at gold. I started using Twitter. I end up seeing some liked tweets and commented on tweets from Mr. All-In around Bitcoin. Started following a couple of people like Saifedean Ammous. Picked up little bits, and then I eventually read the book, and that's basically how it started. Was I was umming and ahhing, thinking this isn't right, and I need to do something about this. Or I may have put money back into property at the end of a year or two in the future from then.
Okay. I just think, obviously we know about gold and how not necessarily hard, but it's not the easiest thing to then buy in. You don't actually hold it. The returns on it aren't necessarily. Well, you hold a paper IOU unless you were thinking about buying a physical gold
it'd be
bar.
buy physical. You can't trust the bank to hold something like that, but then you have to make preparations in your house to hold that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What about yourself? Like, obviously you've got, whether you got shares, Bitcoin, and housing.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about putting more into Bitcoin, and why not?
Well, for me, I have, and I'm thinking about doing some more into Bitcoin, and not just a little bit, a lot more.
So, are you currently Dr. 10%?
No, I am. So if I looked at my portfolio across things right now, I'm probably 60% property, 30%. Yeah, no, I'd say 50% property, 30% into Bitcoin, and 20% with shares right now. And those shares, I'm just like you, I'm just like holding, but those shares I know will eventually, that's my quick money. So I don't hold cash. So I'm holding the shares as essentially like cash. So I know I don't need loads of cash. I can just quickly convert them, and then that would be my money. On the Bitcoin piece, and I'm only, as I say, 30% there in comparison to property, because property is so big, and the value of the properties as well, and also the value of how the properties have gone up in the last 12 to 18 months. So that figure was a little bit lower, but that's inflated.
You might be a lot more Bitcoin then soon. I reckon by about March, we might see a bit of a crash.
Yeah.
So you might be Mr. 50%.
Yeah, 100%. I think I'm going to probably flip it the other way around. So I'd be 50% Bitcoin and then 30% property.
But I think literally, if it we've seen all these price predictions, and I was kind of going, yeah, whatever. It's a long call. I don't believe this. And I saw one scary accurate, which was, I think, October. It was 60 grand. And we got 60 grand. November is 100 and something. And I think he mapped out early parts of the year as well. And it's been very accurate. I have to dig that one out. And if it hits like 100 grand a Bitcoin, then it will mean that obviously you'll end up with far more share, and so will I.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I think I started with the intention of 10%. I'm now approaching 40.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a kind of, it's disproportionate, because if I count the family home,
I don't count the family home.
See, I don't count the family home. Yeah, so
it's a liability, not an asset. That's a bit of a lesson from Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah,
it costs you. There's no benefit, because in order for you to actually make any money with that house, you'd have to sell it, and you'd have nowhere to live.
Yeah. So taking that aside, I am still very more leveraged on the property front, again, because of the prices of the properties. So yeah, but I think in time that will all pan out. And I'm looking at doing more and more Bitcoin as well, as opposed to properties, because it's a lot less stress and headache. I just don't look. I put my sunglasses on like Cyclops from the X-Men, and I don't let my red beams come out. And just keep it moving.
Yeah, I suppose in a few years, it'll actually be 95% of your portfolios Bitcoin and 5%. But I've got 20 properties.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, fair enough.
Wouldn't ever say no.
We were talking about this about adoption, about what's driving. So we've had one about the ETF.
Yeah,
I think we talk about adoption. So the 5 countries will adopt. So it's an article. 5 countries will adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, predicts Bitneyman CEO, due to remittance, inflation, political gain. So that was his kind of prediction. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I definitely think so. So the way that El Salvador has set the bar for anybody else to go and copy is beautiful. You know, it was September 7th. Happy B-Day once again to El Salvador. And that's when it became legal tender within the country. Let's not forget that, yes, you can still buy things in US dollars. You can buy things in Bitcoin. And they gave people an option.
It's a tulip. It's a bubble.
It's a bubble. It's a tulip, indeed.
It's a how many times bubble an hour? About 5 times.
Yeah. If anybody that was given their $30 worth of Bitcoin on that day just simply held it, I think the last count they would have been up like 50%.
So, kind of talking about one of the main things here about. So we start off with remittance. So my understanding for one of the key use cases for Bitcoin becoming a legal tender in El Salvador was the remittance fees by companies like
Western Union.
Called Western Union were about was it $30 out of every 100?
Something like that. Yeah,
it was something very high. Obviously, don't quote me on those figures.
Hey, but this is the misinformation part too, so you can say whatever. Doesn't matter.
$94 out of 100.
Yeah. Say what you want, mate.
Whereas, if you use the Bitcoin network, it's a little bit slow. It'll cost you a few dollars in fees on that, so a lot less. If you use Lightning, it's going to cost you substantially less. I don't know what they are exactly because we're missing Mr. All In.
I think you're looking at pennies on the Lightning network, and literally you might be 1 for 1. I'm
saying 2 cents. I don't know if that's right, but we are talking cents rather than dollars.
Hey, with the misinformation pair, it doesn't matter. 2 cents, 3 cents, maybe 0.
0.00001. There we go. There's a figure.
Anybody listening in El Salvador or around the world, let us know in the comments. How much is it? How much is it?
It's substantially less. So you got a key win there. So you look at these are people who've moved to America to provide their family with more income from America, what they can save from their probably tough jobs, tough long hours. And they send it back.
This is all around the world, not just America, all around the world, wherever the El Salvadorans are now based. Absolutely, they are sending money back home.
And you hear about it for places like Ghana, Senegal, across the west coast of Africa. When I was doing a bit of research for work, one which came up was Cameroon for remittance. So you got all these countries and they're going for, say, 20-30% of those fees are going are fees for remittance, whereas Bitcoin, it's not. Oh, it's volatile. Okay, it goes volatile by 5% a day. It's a lot less than 20-30%. It costs you money to change it. Well, you got the fees to buy the Bitcoin. You got pence to actually change it. And it actually leads into a story, which is very interesting. I don't understand how it works, but Strike as an example of free transfers from fiat to currency. So this changes the game. It literally changes everything. So Jack Mallers is offering, but I think it's just for the US, but if this goes worldwide, it changes remittance completely to Bitcoin. I don't see how Western Union or anyone can compete with them.
Well, do you know what I think? And I don't know whether or not they're doing this, is perhaps they adopt Bitcoin into their model. So they move away from fiat into crypto and into Bitcoin specifically, because otherwise there will be no one that will be using their networks whatsoever. However, when I say this, in the same breath, they are a business, and how they will make money on the Lightning Network or their own type of network will be significantly different and obviously smaller than what they are currently right now. So it's kind of like a completely different business model.
They're not needed with a Lightning Network, though.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
I've had family in whatever country. I was going to say an example, poor country, maybe Wales to England. Then it would just be a WhatsApp or a message or whatever. And we've got Blue Wallet. We transfer money across. Bang! It takes remittance companies out of the game. I don't see a place for them unless there's something which I'm just not seeing there. I mean, it'd be great to hear anyone's thoughts who do use remittance companies and understand how they fit into the future of currency. But kind of moving on from that, the other examples were inflation. So there's a quote in this article, which I want to pull up, so I don't know how true it is. As inflation climbed well above 15% this year in Turkey, crypto adoption surged. Turkey responds by quickly banning the use of crypto for goods and services, but inflation is now at 19.25%. So Turkey is starting to get towards hyperinflation, is my understanding. I haven't really been paying much attention. But the US, we know they printed 22% the previous year, and they're still printing. So It's actually a lot more. So we had this figure when they did all their surges of money. So we know the US caused inflation of 20% off that because they expanded the money supply. Maybe not all of it will trickle down, so maybe high teens. So if Turkey are saying their official figure is 19.25, but we know that the US is not as bad as Turkey, are we doubling that for a real figure?
Pull up a really good point, because maybe the figure that they're giving to us again is propaganda, and it's the classic.
It's gone a bit overboard. It's up to 5%. It's only 5%. It's like, well, how come my steaks cost me 15% more?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? It's a really good point. Maybe we have to go away and verify that information a little bit more, and then come back to you with podcast 28. That's if we don't get cancelled.
When we can actually get
every
back
podcast,
into the show,
we're going to get cancelled.
We haven't been that bad.
Not yet.
Not yet. When we can get back into the notes, it might be worth seeing if we can find something about official inflation figures for some countries versus unofficial, but actually probably more realistic. So that'd be great to look at. So 19.25 for Turkey, is it actually closer to 40%?
Yeah.
If USA is 5%, but we actually know it's closer to 20. So it'd be great to understand what these actual figures are, so we know how much we're being ripped off, and for you to stay even, what kind of percentage increase you'd need per year in each country.
I think that's a great job for Mr. All-In on his return back to our podcast. He'll be all up for that.
When he listens, he'll go, "Oh, fucking hell, they had a good point amongst all that wrong information."
We miss you. Come back to us, Mr. All-In.
We need you to help us.
We need you. I mean, again, for anybody that listened to last week's podcast and our basic maths with a calculator in our hands, it was shocking and shoddy. We apologize. We're sorry.
The final point on this is about political gain. So I think if we're seeing success for El Salvador through surging of crypto, then we're going to see other countries who maybe aren't doing so well, who maybe someone who's going through a rough term will say, we're bringing Bitcoin to get some support.
Yeah.
And also support with a younger generation. So it's a very good point. I think it's definitely something interesting. I mean, I think we're looking realistically at South America at the moment.
I think so.
To be where it's Venezuela who are hyperinflation, Argentina who I think are in hyperinflation or just very high inflation.
Yeah,
Brazil,
that's on my list.
High inflation.
They're on my list.
And I think there's a couple more.
I've got.
You've marked out countries who you think are.
I have, yeah. So I've got an outlier for you. I've got Singapore. I think they are big into Bitcoin, and so I think Singapore could be one. South Korea, I think, are an outlier as well, and Pakistan. I thought I'd get in there before you. Pakistan, I'm going to put down there. So they're my three.
Mine would be Argentina, Venezuela.
Agreed. Turkey, of course.
Turkey are getting strangled by Erdogan, so I just don't see how it gets in. And then Pakistan. I
mean, it's all the more reason for them to be doing so.
Yeah, but the thing is, they've got to somehow get rid of him first, I think, really, to get it going.
Yeah, I think, when things like that, when there's unrest in the country, it's when that's exactly when Bitcoin is needed.
I think they just shoot people instead.
Kind of just Libya?
Gone from
Libya.
Lebanon's currency has just collapsed a couple of weeks ago, hasn't it?
Yes, exactly.
So we got some interesting ones, and it would be great to get a selection of countries going with Bitcoin.
There could be a little sweepstake, couldn't there, on the next country?
Well, who the hell had El Salvador as their first?
Well, yeah, that's a wild card right there, isn't it?
We need to have a GoFundMe and get Jack Maulers out to some of these countries.
Yeah. Do you know what? I actually did a little bit of research, actually, in terms of El Salvador and how El Salvador became that first country. And it was actually during the Obama administration that, because as we were talking about people emigrating and where they emigrate to, you're absolutely right. They emigrate and migrate to the US. And that was a program designed by President Barack Obama, supposed to solve the root of immigration, and because people were just left with no opportunities and effectively just having to get out of El Salvador. And that is because, unfortunately, the crime in El Salvador is so high, and also based on the fact that there was a civil war going on in the country. So they made it super easy for people to flee that country, and then with them already using the US dollar, that's why it was okay for them to then get out to go to the US as well. So following from that, that's why people were moving out. And ultimately, I think, again, these countries that we're naming, there's some huge unrest in them. And so I think it's just playing out once again.
Yeah, kind of moving on to El Salvador, because I think it's another topic. So the El Salvador president, I always forget his name. I follow him on Twitter to see when he pulls out some funny tweets.
Is it Nayib?
Nayib or something.
Hey, this is the misinformation. We could call him Kurt Angle if you want.
President Kurt Angle of El Salvador. It is. So El Salvador, the president's given an update that there's more buyers than sellers, plus $3 million was received in one day.
Yeah, Nayib Bukele.
By Bitcoin. So big numbers there. We're kind of more buyers than sellers, great. So people are using it as a store of value now.
Yeah.
So I think we talked about a couple of the use cases like paying for gas or electricity. So I think One of them, which Gaz was talking through, which we read about, was people would have to go to the nearest town. So they'd have to take a bus. They'd have to spend 3 hours going there. So they probably had to eat as well.
Yeah.
So they had all these expenses to go and pay like a bill, which is probably £4 or something. But instead, they can send it via Bitcoin. So they can say, send me your address to the office. They send their address. They send the £4 worth of sats through. Bang, done. And they don't have to go on that shit. They don't have to go on that bus journey, spend the money. They don't have to go to that store to buy their lunch.
It's a really good documentary or a show that's certainly worthwhile watching.
Sorry, which documentary?
Well, no, in terms of like Jack Mallers and how.
Oh yeah.
In terms of like the people and what they actually had to go through when they were actually collecting their check. And as you mentioned, obviously the journey and the bus journey going there, potentially getting robbed at knife point and so on. So yeah, it's certainly worthwhile. And obviously the Lightning Network and the introduction of Bitcoin to El Salvador is fantastic for the people.
Yeah, so great update. What I've seen,
I'm going to put President Nayib Bukele, for anybody that remembers this guy, he's kind of like, he looks to me as Rick the Model Martel from wrestling. He's got that kind of look about him. Anybody that knows about WWE that's listening, I'm going to now class the president of El Salvador as Rick the Model Martel. Do a little Google search on Rick the Model and you'll know what I mean.
When was he from?
He's Rick. Like Rick the Model Martel, kind of like an 80s wrestler. But I
recognize the name, but I just can't place. Oh, I remember him with his silly little bow tie.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
fair play. And then Kaylee. I'm not entirely convinced, but hey.
Just give him a little bit of give him a goatee and you got Rick the Model.
Okay. Yeah, so something which I've seen, probably a pile of rubbish and quite hard to work out, there's been a protest about this adoption of Bitcoin in El Salvador. So they're saying thousands of people, but these are the kind of media outlets which were saying that there's only hundreds of people in Sydney, Paris, London protesting against lockdowns, when we've seen the overhead camera shots and it's hundreds of thousands of people. So yeah, it's hard to understand what the actual truth is there. And whether it's someone who's paid, whether it's a small amount, or whether it's just people who fundamentally disagree with Bitcoin boiling oceans or something. So I think that's a pile of rubbish to kind of try and counter the good news coming out of El Salvador, because it's now booming. The value's doubled since they adopted. So good on him. I hope it keeps on surging, partly for my own fund.
Yeah, exactly that. As you get closer and closer, as the price goes up and increases more and more, does it not make you again though want to put more and more into Bitcoin despite your 10% preference, because it gets you closer to your moon? Because everybody's got a moon.
Yeah, my moon is basically when I can afford to retire and I can decide what I want to do. I don't have the financial pressure of wondering where my money's going to come from. Yeah, that's generally my ultimate aim, is financial freedom, but it's whether I take it or not. I know it sounds absolutely mad, especially if Mr. All-In was here, because
he'd slap you through the monitor right now.
But I think I'd have to work out what I'd do in my life.
Yeah.
For, you think at the moment work is a substantial amount of time. I've got a fairly challenging job at the moment. There's a lot to do. But to replace that, to pull it out.
Talking of pulling out, you could just be pulling out and beating off like Mr. All-In every day.
With his loads of OnlyFans subscriptions.
I'm sure that will help pass the time, my friend.
Well, yeah, it's always tempting, but I'm just dollar cost DCAing at the moment. You know, I could sell other assets and go further in, but I just can't bring myself to do it.
Anyone listening, give Dr. Evil 10% suggestions of what he needs to do with his life. Not even like, well, I don't even think we need to get into hyperbitcoinization, do we, for you to then just tap out?
Yeah, I don't think we need to get that far anywhere close, but I think if this was 10 years ago, I probably would have emptied a lot of my investments.
He'd be talking to you with a bare chest because he'd even sell the jumper on his back right now.
Yeah. So it's I think I probably was quite risk adverse then, but it's with a family. I think you become even more risk adverse.
Yeah.
I mean, what's stopping you selling all your house or your property and shares and just going bump?
Just for diversification right now, like you in terms of it. So, you know, I want the cash flow from the properties and to have that, but also the diversification. It also gives me, similar to like you say, something to do, which I enjoy, even though it's a little bit of a headache and a stress to get things up and running initially. But following, I
think that may be one way. It may be one way for me to tap out would be to invest into property, but it would probably result in me having to sell Bitcoin in order to do that. So buy, you know, X amount of properties to have a passive income. But I don't think I could ever tap out completely.
Yeah.
I think that would be a mistake.
It's a classic, isn't it? You know, you just probably will swap one asset class for another. So your asset class could be your shares, your ETFs, or your trash cash fiat, then going into property, or of course, maybe putting it all in to Bitcoin and then selling a certain percentage, which then allows you to do it. But my hope and aspiration is that you don't even need to sell any of your Bitcoin and you loan against the Bitcoin in order to pull out a little bit of trash cash and then be able to do it that way. That's the real
property baron.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be a good outcome, because I think it's that worry
that great outcome.
If you do for some reason have a crash in Bitcoin after you've retired,
we will.
You know, so you've got it, then I think you need something to back up against.
Yeah,
I think that's a way to look at it, especially with a young family like us both.
Yeah,
kind of moving the conversation slightly on, going to remittance. So talking about Strike. So this is a story which I think you picked out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a great update. And what a guy here. I think he's only 28, Jack Mollers. And he's just ahead of the game on everything. And I think he just thrives on beating up boomers. Boomers must be rolling in their, in bed at night thinking, this little whippersnapper is killing me right now.
And so my favorite thing about him, he's 28 and he converted not just one person, but a whole country to Bitcoin.
What a level of protestalization is that? Hey, he not only did that, a whole country, he helped write the paper to allow them to move from just fiat into Bitcoin. Amazing. We salute you, Jack Moore.
So basically with this story, there's something which I don't understand. So if you have a Strike account and you say, I want to get paid into my Strike account, then they'll automatically convert it to Bitcoin for you, or a certain percentage, depending on what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Do you pay fees on that, or is it no fees? I mean, how are they doing this?
This is very, very interesting. I mean, from the article, it says that there will be no fees and people will be able to just simply deposit. Well, it will directly deposit and convert without any fees whatsoever. So you just simply tell, I guess, your HR department, pay me in Bitcoin.
Oh, it wouldn't be then. It would be Strike, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. I guess if you move,
so your HR pays you your trash cash, and along comes Strike, and poof,
boom.
But I don't understand a bit about no fees with Strike. This is what I don't get. How are they doing it? How do they make money?
Will it be advertising?
Yeah, it's not a product which I know anything about because it is US. It isn't UK at the moment. When it does move to UK, I'll be signing up.
Yeah.
To find out what it's about.
100%. Sorry to cut you off there. I'm just going to find his name. Let me find what. So he does a podcast. I think it's What Bitcoin Did. And so What Bitcoin Did is led by Peter McCormack. Yeah. So he did an interview not so long ago with Jack, and Peter said, I definitely want to be bumped up the queue. And as soon as he does so, he will be probably one of the first people, if not the first person in the UK to be able to have a play around with it. And I'm definitely going to jump on it as well, because I am thinking, rather than doing the 10% tax, may reduce the 10%, 10% pension. We kind of reduce that. Maybe just do 2%. So maybe take 2% and you just convert it straight away into Bitcoin. And slowly but surely you start. Oh, I know it's a risk, but isn't just leaving it in the pension more of a risk, knowing what you know? Oh, I know, I'm taking you through a change curve. Look at the face of that. Look at that face. That's the face that you don't normally see. But I'm putting something brand new in front of him, and now he's going to have to go through that change curve. It's not brand new.
Mr. All-In's been like, fuck your pension, put into Bitcoin. But I'm like, I can't sack my pension off. It's diversification at the moment.
I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate because I do the same.
And it's also that percentage which you pay.
Yeah.
So depending on your earnings, if you, what are the thresholds? Is it over 50 grand? Is 40%?
I think it's 38%. Sorry, 38 grand. Then you, at that point, then you're at the 40% tax threshold. Then at the £150,000 and above, you're at the 50% threshold for tax.
So if you think about this, a good proportion of the population will be earning in that 40% bracket.
Yeah.
So the money which you put into your pension doesn't come from the lower tax bands. So it doesn't come from a free amount. It doesn't come from the 10%. It comes from the 40%. So if you put that money out and you went, oh, actually, I want to take that grand and I want to take it on my pension and put it into Bitcoin, you've now got £600 instead. So I can't get my head around losing that money from the pension. I just can't do it. I suppose it's Mr. All-In would be like, son, I ain't got no pension. But Mr. All-In owns about half of the Bitcoin on Earth. So it's a different one. And he's also not got kids and he lives the life of a playboy.
Yeah, that's probably what he's doing right now, isn't he? Just on a jet ski. In
the jacuzzi. He's actually got one of the girls off OnlyFans.
Exactly.
But yeah, I can't get over that 40% tax is why I won't move out of the pension. And it is diversification. Like, it fits into the diversification, even though it's really painful diversification. Because if I could put my pension into a Bitcoin ETF for a couple of years, I would certainly do that. Especially if I wasn't in
I'd do that.
I would do it without a hesitation. and I tell my wife to do the same, and she's even more risk adverse than me. She would be Dr. 5%.
I like that.
And she's actually a doctor.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh no, wouldn't she be more? She'd be Dr. No, she would be less. She would be like, yeah, only do 5%, no more, 5%.
Yeah, because I've had to talk into risk taking on various different things, and yeah.
Yeah. Here's an interesting one then. So, because I think we certainly see a time when these pension providers are approached and they get it, even though it's probably like one of the slowest industries, to consider moving or offering the ability for people to move into some sort of Bitcoin ETF or some sort of exposure to Bitcoin for your pension. When that happens, do you do it?
I would at the moment. I'd definitely do it for a couple of years for certain. You've got, I suppose, 2 points. I suppose there's a risk about adoption again, but then there's also when you do hit something like hyperbitcoinisation, why would you be putting it into Bitcoin anyway at that point?
Yeah.
But at that point, I probably would be like, fuck your pension.
Yeah. I think they probably will, but they will probably get to Bitcoins at so late that the gains in Bitcoin would be similar to what they are right now. It'd be like in the single digits. So yes, you're still making gains, and I'm talking,
but by that point, by that point, it'd be more certain. And for you and me, by the time it got to that point, we probably would be in hyperbitcoinisation, and we'd just be like, I'm not paying into a pension.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got 20 houses in case I fall on hard times.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I've got 5 gold-plated jet skis. One for my bath.
Yeah. So then I guess rather than not doing the 10%, again, I'm with you on that because I do that as well. So I'm playing devil's advocate, as I said. I guess would you then think about taking a smaller percentage from your 100% pay pop that you get, so you put 10% away into pension, and then all of a sudden you decide, actually, I'm going to now move it over to here.
Sorry, move a
percentage into crypto and do it over here. Sorry, into Bitcoin. Not crypto.
I think I'd move all my payments into Bitcoin if it is an option at the moment.
I mean, from going back to Strike, sorry, in terms of going back to Strike. So the original point.
Oh, it's Strike. So if you had
when Strike becomes global.
Yeah, when it becomes my main bank account, I would certainly put a percentage in, especially if they're offering no fees, because they beat Coinbase on it. Yeah. It would just be what's can you transfer funds out? Because we know we had a hiccup with Revolut and they limit to what is it, £1,000 a month. So right. I've been trying to move all my money onto my ledger out of there, and it's been a nightmare because I've only been using it for a year, and I built up a shitload of that vault through punishing myself with the 10 times by 10, which has been painful, but it's actually given me a massive profit on there.
Yeah.
So that's been a nightmare moving out, and it's if Strike allow you to move it when you please would be my kind of caveat.
Good shout.
But yeah, I would certainly be moving it, and I would just move my payments into that, because I don't do 10% of my money into Bitcoin every month, but I do a proportion. I don't know what percentage it would be. I'd have to work that out.
Yeah, you just do it as and when, do you? Because I do it as and when.
I just do 50 quid a week. That's literally regular every Monday. It goes through to my Coinbase account. I buy it and it sits on there until I build up a little bit, and then I transfer it off.
Yeah. So I definitely think I would. imagine doing this. If we got paid when we got paid, obviously we're middle of the month-ish or the third week of the month. If we'd have done it last month in terms of a percentage of your wage, you may have earned your wage just through the gains and the increase. So just imagine that.
Yeah, that would be phenomenal. So you think if earlier months looking back, you would have earned an absolute fortune on it.
Yeah.
It's basically fundamentally what we've done in a way by going into Bitcoin. And it's certainly what Mr. Orlin did when he was squirreling away his money into Bitcoin, is into the magical internet money, wearing his wizard's hat while everyone's just like, what the fuck are you doing, guys? And he's like, it's going to be magic, it's going to make it. We're going to be rich. And it's just like...
he definitely did that, didn't he?
Yeah, and fair play to him. He was right.
Yeah. But I'm really looking forward to this one. And so anybody else out there, again, if you are in the US and you're listening and you've already started, I'd love to see how this is going, and maybe, shout out on the comments on YouTube, and we'd love to get a little bit of a demo or just have an understanding of it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Have you tried to speak to Strike?
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
I knew you would.
Of course. Yeah, there's only about 40 employees or so. But yeah, I'm certainly reaching out.
A fair play.
Yeah. Hey, got to. Oh, and SoFi as well. Actually, SoFi is an interesting one. We'll talk about them offline.
So what do we want to move on to next? Because we've been talking about Strike, and someone who I always associate with Strike and kind of my link, which is probably because of one of the Bitcoin conferences and around El Salvador, was Jack Dorsey.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of flows into that one, maybe because both their names are Jack, which would be a really weak link. But I think it's about the time which
seamless. You're getting so good.
Jack Mallers was working on El Salvador. Jack Dorsey was talking about the ledger, which he's going to look at, and something else which he's talked about. So being a bit of a Bitcoin fanatic, he has been talking about making a Bitcoin miner. So kind of like a plug and play. So
love that.
When we're looking at nodes, I think the same kind of idea is out there. You can buy them for, I think, about 500 quid. Whereas if you build your own, I think it'll cost you about 150. And I think it's the same principle, because if you want to make it and then load it up and get it ready to use, you have to do certain configs, load on software, download the blockchain. So it takes a lot of time. So it is quite resource intensive. So getting someone to preload it would suit some people a lot more. I mean, I'm still open on the node of having a pre-built one. I've just got to find one which is a reasonable price and which does what I want. So obviously hoping that we'll get Mr. Orlin back on the pod when he's not lost in the woods to guide us through that. But back to the Bitcoin miners. So it sounds like a great idea. Get more people mining, but then I suppose the worry is that so many people mine, you end up with you're boiling the oceans again.
Well, I guess, ultimately it's the reason why Bitcoin is the number one and the only one in terms of a cryptocurrency that's out there. Forget all the other shit coins and altcoins, is because it's decentralized. I would love to hear the argument about why having so many miners would be a bad thing. Again, comments, and when Mr. Orlin comes back, maybe he could provide an understanding to this. But I only see it as a good thing, because the more miners that are out there is strengthening the network. And I just think that it would be good for that. And of course, if Jack Dorsey's thinking about it and saying, he's trying to make it open to the masses, he's already gone through that thought process of, well, I've already got 200 million people using my platform, which is Twitter. A percentage of those are obviously Bitcoiners. If we took just 5% of those people, then that's going to be 10 million people that are now new miners. That's fantastic, surely.
Yeah, it's just, I suppose if you've got too many miners, I suppose it'd be understanding that from Mr. All-In. So you can articulate for us.
Well, I don't know if you've seen on the thread, Jack actually, goes through various different points. He gives us 5 points. So I'll just quickly read them out and we can go through that. So as he says in point 1, mining needs to be more distributed. The core job of a miner is to securely settle transactions without the need for trusted third parties. So this is critical well after the last Bitcoin is mined. The more decentralized this is, the more resilient the Bitcoin network becomes. So that's point 1.
Yeah.
And I guess if you've got some early miners, they will have no doubt hit their moon. And I think also some of the sell-offs that we see are surely miners, because whilst it's good, I do think there comes a time when people want to enjoy the fruits of their labor and the fruits of the mining. So when they hit their point, the coins are obviously going back into onto the blockchain, and then obviously then open once again for people to pick up those coins, because there will be no more once they're out there. It is all gone. And so maybe it's a good thing. And you pass on your mining to your kids and they pass it on to theirs and so on. And that's how you get the generational wealth. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I think on the flip side to what I was saying, we talk about boiling the oceans, but we've never truly had the figure of what gold, banking, all the ATMs, everything else going on with financial institutions actually does for energy. So you did have a scaled up version of Bitcoin with many different miners. How would that be in comparison? Because I think people don't appreciate that when we're basically coming up with a way to replace certain assets, currencies, all sorts. So we kind of swap those over, then is it actually going to be as bad? Lighting up all these buildings, having people working on shit which could be automated. You don't have remittance because you have Bitcoin now, the Lightning Network. Surely that would help save electricity and not boil the oceans.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes on to his second point, where he talks about mining needs to be more efficient. So driving towards clean and efficient energy use is great for Bitcoin's economics, impact, and scalability. Energy is a system-level problem that requires innovation in silicon software and integration. What are the largest opportunities here? So maybe
we've had the first volcano mining operation in Salvador, haven't we?
Yeah, we have indeed. Yeah,
amazing
innovation right there, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what else we could do. Treadmills around here.
Hey, that'd be really good. We'd love that.
There's plenty of wind farms near where I live as well, along the coast.
Jack then goes on to his third point that says silicon design is too concentrated into a few companies. This means supply is likely over-constrained. Silicon development is very expensive, requires long-term investment, and is best coupled tightly with software and system design. Why aren't more companies doing this work? Again, so perhaps this is why he wants to distribute it out a bit further to the masses. Mr. All-In, I'm sure you've probably got lots of comments there on this when you saw this. The fourth point, there isn't enough focus on vertical integration, considering hardware, software, productization I knew I would get it out there somehow. And distribution requires accountability for delivering to an end customer versus improving a single technology in the chain. Does seeing this as a single system improve accessibility? And then last but not least, mining isn't accessible to everyone. True. Bitcoin mining should be as easy as plugging a rig into a power source. There isn't enough incentive today for individuals to overcome the complexity of running a miner for themselves. What are the biggest barriers for people running miners?
This is quite a lot of the problems with Bitcoin is accessibility.
Yeah.
So ledgers, buying Bitcoins, understanding the use cases,
massively.
And then mining nodes. These are things which, if we want a better currency for the people, we need to better understand. So running a node, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up running a node soon. But I've got to understand it, because it's not straightforward.
Yeah.
But we're all plug and play, which is probably the advantage of nodes. But it is fairly pricey. But there's things which I want to understand before I actually do it.
Yeah. I'm probably going to go down the plug and play route. And then I'm also going to probably look into, as I mentioned, like my own laptop as well for that. So just to
big spending.
Hey, I know, big spending.
You have less of that Bitcoin. You're taking that portfolio down from 30% down to 29.
I'll run it through the business. It's a business expense. And that will also help me to lower my taxes as well, which is, again, probably we need to do a pod where we cover a little bit more on the property front, but that's a very good one where I can obviously show all of the renovation work, and I've got or had lots of money going out and zero tax to pay, which is very nice. So yeah, let's get back onto the agenda. So
I think we've been quite positive. So let's pick out some of the negative stories.
Yeah.
So I've got some favorites here. So I'm going to wait because we've got a whole load on inflation. So I'm going to skip over that. And I think we've got a couple ones. BlackRock CEO likes crypto, but isn't sure about Bitcoin. So this is story. I read this and I went, what's the name of the what's the name of that idiot? JP Morgan. Is it Jamie Dimon?
Oh, Jamie Dimon.
Yeah, he seems to talk a lot of shit without a lot of sense. Whereas the CEO of BlackRock, what's his name again? Larry Fink. That's it.
Larry Fink.
I read it and just went, it was very subtle, and I think he downplayed it quite well. It was actually quite an approach, whereas I think Jamie Dimon, he just comes across as a bit of an idiot when he talks about Bitcoin, whereas Larry, he was just, the way which he did it was almost like a bit like, what's it called? Neuro-linguistic programming. It was almost like digging away at little bits rather than just being a fucking idiot and just saying things which make you look like an idiot.
Yeah.
So I thought it's quite a clever approach when he said, I don't really like it, but I like crypto, so I'm cool. I like a bit of cum rocket when I'm paying the slags.
As he says there, I'm not a student of Bitcoin and where it's going to go, so I can't tell you whether it's going to go to $80,000 or zero, but I do believe there's a huge role for digitized currency, and I believe that's going to help consumers worldwide. He says that, no doubt, knowing that his customers will want some form of digital
or
digital currency.
Or it could be the central bank digital currencies.
Exactly where I was going to go, my friend.
But yeah, I thought it was actually a clever approach on Bitcoin. I'll give him that. Yeah. He didn't come across as an idiot, which I think a lot of people who just shout about how bad Bitcoin is come off as.
Yeah, because in the actual article, which he then goes on to say is, whether it's Bitcoin or something else, or more of a government official digital dollar, that will play out. And that's, I think, where they really want to go to, because with that, once again, we know it's the control, and that government official digital dollar is where we will probably go to first. And that's because, whilst we are, I will say, and we have financially educated ourselves, people will be more trusting in the government digital dollar than they will Bitcoin and the decentralization of Bitcoin. So I think we're going to get to a point where you've got two camps, essentially, digital dollar and Bitcoin. And the masses will probably come over to here, but then obviously we know how that's going to play out. And those that are on this camp will be looking over thinking, you idiot, you bunch of idiots. And then when that collapses, that's when Bitcoin wins.
Yeah, because I think it's the ones where they try and force a digital currency which tries to lock you in, limits your spending. And the countries which have adopted Bitcoin, it'll be interesting to see what happens then. So I just feel like there's too much freedom of movement to really do that. Though with what Biden's proposing with the $600 transaction monitoring, it kind of leads into digital currencies. Whoever's come up with that is a fucking idiot. But then again, like you said, it might just be a halfway house to get to $5,000 or something, down from 10.
Yeah, massively. It's kind of like what you would do in negotiating, where you put a really big anchor out there. So his anchor is 600, and then it lands at maybe 5,000, and you think, oh, we've got a win there, because originally they were going to say it was 600, but yet really they've just slashed it by 50%. And that as inflation increases more and more, not that necessarily you'll be making many £5,000 or $5,000 transactions, but it will be closer to $5,000 transactions as opposed to $10,000 transactions. And slowly but surely, they might then do a new anchor. So when it's at 5,000, you might say, we need to monitor $300 transactions and above. And then instead, it then comes down to 2.5. But slowly but surely, they'll get to their 600 by eating away and nibbling at it each and every time.
I almost doubt it will last that long, though.
No,
because it just seems to be falling apart at a record rate. And Biden and his government don't seem to be able to control their spending at all. So I just don't know if it'll get down. But I thought we'd go to this article because it's a bit of a negative. And I thought it was
definitely. And also as well, it goes back.
It was respectable as well. And he did say, my favorite quote, inflation, not transitory. So he does give a bit of kudos to himself by not trying to claim that it's transitory. So you can trust him in a certain way.
It also covered, I think it's interesting because obviously on Pod 25, for those that listened on the Great Reset, Bitcoin is something that threatens the likes of BlackRock and Vanguard. So they have to be seen to be kind of partially on board so that they can pivot to ensure that they are still relevant in some of this as well. And as Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market continues to kind of draw from other asset classes. So you mentioned it yourself about, well, you could go and you could sell your properties and then put that money into Bitcoin. Lo and behold, that's Bitcoin and in the crypto market swallowing up more from the asset classes. When that happens, that's also going to hurt the likes of BlackRock that obviously invest in the banks and so on. So they also lose. So they have to be seen to be relevant in somehow. And I think comments like this means that they're starting to position themselves into crypto.
Moving on to the other bit of negativity, or rather, it's actually quite a funny story. So Michael Burry, who is not a Bitcoin believer, kind of flips in and out on his Twitter account. So you see some tweets from him and he disappears, makes it private. So it came back online, and his comment, he's seen a bit of a surge. He asks how to short Bitcoin, and this was days before it hit 60K. So he's someone who I think we all kind of admire in a way after the big short. Bet against the market, was proven right, but keeps on betting against Bitcoin and keeps on getting proved wrong. So is it just a one-off with a big short, or is he actually onto something? Is it the world's biggest tulip bubble?
Yeah. I think he may have even listened to our podcast, I think. And because if he did, he thought, these plebs don't know a thing. And then all of a sudden, boom.
Well, we listened to our podcast.
40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 46. You know, it just carried on like that, didn't it? It just carried on. Even Sir Neverlook had to look.
If he did listen to this podcast, he'd buy Bitcoin.
Well, he should have. That was the theme of last week. Just buy Bitcoin. It's the theme of every week, but you know, essentially.
I suppose the other question is he runs his own investment company at the moment, doesn't he? So he is current. He understands what he's doing because he obviously makes his clients returns. So he's got a decent amount in, but he seems to have. It's this weird kind of like. It's in people's heads. I don't want Bitcoin to succeed because I wasn't in early. I don't. You know, I wasn't. We weren't in early, either of us. And I think Mr. All In would probably say he wasn't in early, though he was in a lot earlier than us. And we kind of saw the value and went in. Whereas I think people like Michael Burry just been very, very stubborn, which has obviously gained him a great career, and he's made a lot of money, but he's wrong. He is wrong on this.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised where I put kind of people like Michael Burry, Peter Schiff, and others that are on the other side of the fence to also be thinking secretly, I think that you might be in. I just think that they might give off this persona that they're playing essentially the heel and the bad guy as to, I'm not interested in this Bitcoin thing. You shouldn't buy, you should try and short it.
You mean like George Soros is telling everyone to play it down, but he's getting some in.
Exactly that. Exactly
while he's absorbing some souls to keep himself alive.
I wouldn't put it past any of them at all. What I don't think though is that countries like the UK, the US that don't necessarily have Bitcoin on their books or as a country, when they're saying no, they're not doing it, and they will be late to the party, thinking that because they're superpowers of the world right now that they can catch up. But little did they know, El Salvador beat your ass and got there first. So
it'll be every citizen of El Salvador gets a free jet ski one day. Kind of going on to another one. So great article from Bank of England.
Do you think Michael Burry will ever change his position though? Do you think he has that humility within him, or do you think he's just set for life, by the way?
I think he thinks that he should be first on everything. He should understand a lot earlier. So I think he's probably too stubborn to actually admit it. I think that's where he's going to be stuck.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just trying to load up the article, so I think it's a good time to move on to the Bank of England next. So another funny article about apparently Bitcoin is going to cause a financial meltdown. Not entirely sure how. So reading through the article, it referred to 2008, which was caused by poor lending decisions. It's saying more people are lending to buy crypto. But I think the actual stats of the figures for people who are lending to buy crypto is very, very minute. So it is not on a scale of a lending crisis. So if people did default on those loans, it probably wouldn't even scratch the surface from what I understand.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's a pointless article written by an absolute melt.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more at all. Let's have a look at this then. Next article, I would like to pick. Well, how about Tucker Carlson?
Oh, Tucker Carlson. So we're going into the big area of inflation here.
Yeah.
So I think I've pinned on a couple of other articles as well, which kind of line up quite nicely with this.
Okay, take it away.
Yeah. So was it Gaz who tagged this video, or was it yourself?
Yeah. No, G-Man was there. He did it. Just the truth started to hit home.
It's a 10-minute video of what he's termed as truth bombs on the American economy around money printing and inflation. So some figures which he's tagged in are washing machines up 29%, furniture 10%, TV 7%, petrol 45%. So Tucker Carlson had a bit of a rant. So pointing at some things like the Fed was in place to control inflation. It's basically turned from being a fireman into an arsonist. So in his words, which I thought was quite good, he referred to quantitative easing and said that it's fundamentally stealing your money, savings, wages, whatever you want to. They're printing $100 billion every month. And it's meant to be for crisis, but it's turned into an absolute wretched drug addict now. You to that level.
Yep.
So the more money you print, the less each dollar is worth. So as I explained earlier, if you've got 100 units, you keep on printing more, those 100 units become less. So if we go into like baseball cards, which I think we talked about last week, you have your rare one. If there's 5 of them, it's not so rare. If it's just one, it's super rare. If you've now got 1,000 out there, it's even less rare. If there's 1 million, it's certainly not rare. So it's worth less and less. And that is fundamentally what's happening to the dollar. And Tucker Carlson had a big rant. I'd advise anyone to watch this because it's becoming more and more evident. It's everywhere in the media, but we get the government officials saying it's transitory is a favorite term because I don't think an average individual would know what transitory means. And they just feel like, okay, it's not permanent.
Explain that for the plebs.
It's flowing through. So basically, it's transitory means it's moving. It's not going to stick. So it's not going to affect you for too long.
It's here today, gone tomorrow. So it's one of those things that maybe, post-pandemic or still mid-pandemic, it's here at this moment, but don't worry, it'll all go back to normal soon, but it's not.
I've never heard the term before.
Yeah, I think the significance is that Tucker Carlson is on Fox News. So that is a really big thing because that's going out to the masses in terms of like people getting this message. So yeah, we've tagged it on this YouTube clip. It's just got over 500,000 views on it. But
so I think in his words, he said it enriches the banks and big investors because it means the money supply blows up, so their stocks are becoming massively inflated. But it screws everyone who works and saves. Those are his exact words. So really relevant. And if some people still aren't getting this, then I don't know what's going to make you get it. And I tagged in a couple of articles. So there's an old one from Reuters. So its headline was "Transitionary inflation is a fig leaf that's slipping." It just says it all. It's just like, this isn't, this isn't real. And then another one was from where they're proposing paying $21 an hour to flip burgers at McDonald's.
Yeah.
So I think we discussed this a little bit last week. So if you're paying them $21, 40-hour a week, it's roughly about 42 grand a year. So you're paying someone 42 grand to flip burgers. Obviously they want to provide for their family. I've got no qualms about that. But then if you've got a teacher, how much are they getting paid? How much is the fireman getting paid? So all those wages are either going to sit there. We're going to go, why the fuck am I doing this for 2 grand extra when I could be flipping burgers and not dealing with 30 screaming kids? Okay. I don't know what teachers are paid in the US, but they aren't paid a lot in the UK. So that's probably similar. So you got to think that their wages are going to go up. Okay, so teachers' wages up, so they need more tax. So we need more tax then. I want to get paid more. Plumbers want to get paid more. So everything's going to fire up. So we're kind of like in this ridiculous cycle again of no one really understanding what they're worth, because the ground, which is the money, keeps on moving around. They can't work out that, for me to live, I need to buy X amount of chicken. I need to have my Netflix. I need to have that holiday. This is how much money I need a year. And because it keeps on moving and how much you actually have to pay as it increasing, I don't think it's very easy for people to work out their worth, apart from when it gets to a point where you're going, shit, I can't afford what I need to feed my family, which is people who work in McDonald's.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, I think those people will, like, as you mentioned, tradespeople, people that work in McDonald's or teachers, wherever they are, they will also have to manage living as well. So their living is going to be increasing. So when the price of steak continues to go up, they will want to obviously be able to manage that. And so it's all relevant, isn't it? So they will start charging more. So when McDonald's charges more, they then have to pay more out to have McDonald's. And so therefore, those costs are then passed on, and it just continues to spiral.
We have seen a bit of a wages increase or inflation of wages in the technology sector for certain technical jobs, So it's going to be interesting how it kind of pushes out, because everyone's expenses have gone up, so everyone wants to be paid more, which is always nice. But when you actually look at the facts of it, it's not that you're making more money to save, you're just paying higher expenses.
Yeah, I wish I had a sat for every time that I quote him, however, but Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad book came out in 1997. And in 1997, he coined the term "savers are losers" back then. As we sit here 24 years later, and he's sold over 46 million copies worldwide, it's playing out. And, he was taught by what's known as a futurologist, whereby they look into what the future is going to be like. And lo and behold, the future of what he said would happen is happening right now. And so he said to invest into assets and, don't be a saver, because savers are, again, losers. And at first, I just didn't get it, because, you are naturally told, and it's hardwired into you, save your money, save, save, save. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to save if you're going to save to then put it into something which is like an asset class like Bitcoin or HODL. Obviously, in terms of that's a form of saving, but not saving in terms of fiat money.
Yeah, if you're going to save money, I suppose the worst thing is keep it in cash, but then I suppose if you must, put it into shares or Bitcoin, whatever you want, just something which won't lose value, because that's what you're seeing now. If you save money to buy a car or something grand for your house, then it's just going to devalue.
Yeah, massively.
So what do you want to move on to now? Because I think we've got a couple of stories left.
Yeah, we've still got some more left. So I guess talking about, this flows in quite nicely, actually, where I've termed it "Bye Bye Losers, Have Fun Staying Poor." So So essentially, Bitcoin is boosting cryptocurrencies firms' market cap by leaving Apple in the dust. And that's because based on just simply having Bitcoin on their ledgers, the total market cap of some of these organizations are increasing, twice, triple, and so on. And while the Cupertino-based company's market cap stood at 2.3 trillion, the recent Bitcoin rally has taken cryptocurrency market up to 2.37 trillion. So therefore, it's eclipsed Apple, but also companies and countries like El Salvador, Cuba, and Paraguay that are obviously considering putting Bitcoin onto their books, and Tesla, MicroStrategy, and Square. By having Bitcoin on their books over the last year or so, it's over doubled, in terms of price and in terms of value. So that's a point where if you've got cash on the books and then you've put it into crypto, that's where saving or hodling actually works.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I just don't think we're close to the end of it as well.
No, not at all.
You're still early if you go in now. There's still going to be massive gains if you want gains, or if you want to be part of the future of currency, then here we are.
Yep. I'm sure you've heard the analogy of the baseball game. We are still in the parking lot, right? So the game has not even begun. We've just arrived at the stadium.
What's going to go on? I think there's two more stories. So there's one which I think is quite funny, which we'll leave till the end, which is a kind of wrecked of the week.
Yeah.
But there's Calvin Robinson, and I thought this was Gaz. It's not. It's you.
Yeah, the Great Reset. So, the Calvin Robinson one was again. Maybe it was actually. So what? I'd never come across this guy before. Had you?
I'd seen this clip's been circulating for a couple of months, I want to say, but
Okay.
It was not the full thing. It's just him quite articulately saying, what does Build Back Better mean? Who's saying what better is? And it's just him saying most fundamentals, and it's just like, digging into this whole kind of policy which all the world leaders are spouting.
Yeah.
We didn't elect you to build back better. We elected you to uphold what we've got.
Yeah,
and he was very articulate in how he said it, and I had to download was it Telegraph to view this?
Telegram, yeah.
Telegram, and I still don't really know how to use it. It just seems like a weird messaging app with channels for people mixed in.
Yeah. So it's again one of those secure messaging apps. So different to WhatsApp, but similar to Signal. And you can customize it, and obviously it's a lot more secure than WhatsApp as well, even though it talks about it being encrypted. I don't think it is encrypted when they read your messages, but that's a different podcast for a different time. But Telegram is certainly up there. And on this Telegram, if for anybody again listening, it's certainly worthwhile taking the time just to watch this clip, because this Great Reset is being talked about a lot, and the Great Reset is all about building back better, and I think we need to be mindful that it's kind of like NLP again, isn't it? That repetition of when you hear it again and again, and it's being drummed into people that we need to build back better. And I think slowly but surely they just become brainwashed of, oh yeah, build back better.
I had this conversation with my friends, and he says, we do need to build them back in a different way, but I'm like, can you trust the politicians to do that? Because all you'll be trodden on more. If you allow someone control to build back better, it's going to be better for them, not for you.
Of course.
They'll be eating steak, you'll be eating soy.
Well, if you go into it with your eyes shut, trusting, then yes. Whereas I think, as we know, as Bitcoiners, we're going into this skeptical. We're going into this from a first principles perspective of actually not trusting and verifying ourselves, and also from historically knowing that they've not actually ever done anything that's been beneficial really to the people and to the masses. It's been beneficial to them
and their friends
and family.
I'm kind of like, I think the Great Reset, as we call it, I'm still kind of on the fence because I just don't understand the end game of it. I'm stuck on this point until I see something, and it could be something really simple which gets me, but I just can't see it. But I think if someone wants to look into some points about the Great Reset and the Build Back Better, I think in this, 4-minute clip, I think Calvin Robinson says it quite articulately about who the hell are you to say that you know what is better? And we didn't elect you to build back better because you don't know what better is.
Yeah, massively.
But obviously in a much better way, he explains it.
He does indeed. I'm definitely going to be looking out for him more and more.
I started reading a book, funnily enough. So one of those videos which you made me watch, the Great Reset Pod.
Okay.
I started.
So you've moved away from Hustler magazine.
Always got a love for that. So I started reading the book Giants, the Global Power Elite by Peter Phillips. So it's on one of the links which you guys share. Well, I think Gaz probably shared. I thought I'll read about it, just see what he has to say.
Yeah, that was from Pod 25.
But yeah, I'm not very far in, so I'll just have to see how it goes.
Okay. I need to catch up on my Audible actually, because I paused it for a while. I had, I think, about 4 books built up, and so I downloaded them, and obviously I just need to get through those and get back on them, and then start trundling through the list that's already there as well. So
I'm kind of stuck on the Jordan Peterson one at the moment.
That's what stagnated my whole movement. You're absolutely right. I think
it was a wrong book. It's a lifestyle book, and I'm not bothered about lifestyle books. I know about lifestyle, whereas I'm more interested in Bitcoin economics, investments, and things like that.
Yeah, I think so maybe
go through some cheap books to get me going, but I need to finish off Jordan Peterson first.
But yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're probably like me, where you think, well, I've started, so I've got to finish it, even though you might not be enjoying it. Whereas really, we should just sack it off and just move on.
8 hours left.
Yeah.
And I've got 3 credits built up because of him.
Yeah. I was in exactly the same position. I've gone to him, I've chosen him and thought, okay, I'm going to read this, and then I've not, or listened to it, and then I've not, and then I've built up credits, and I've equally then not sacked him off, and I've thought, I'll painfully endure it, but he's making me not even want to press the Audible app.
I'm just having a quick look to find my wish list, because I think I've got some lined up. Price of Tomorrow, is that
Glory Holes 2022 edition?
Sorry?
Glory Holes 2022
here
edition.
We go. Wish list. The Price of Tomorrow. Principles for dealing with a changing world order. Why Nations Fail.
Yeah.
Fed Up. Beyond Order, which is Jordan Peterson, which I'm not going to listen to now.
Don't do it.
I've got Basic Economics. I want an economics book, but I'm trying to find a good one, so I'm committed. And then Total Recall. So those are ones which I've got lined up. But
yeah,
I'll go for a cheap one, like the price of tomorrow. It's 5 hours 49.
It's a great
book.
Just
to get me back on it, and then I think a few others along those kind of thing, because I feel like it's bored. It's obviously good for some people, Jordan Peterson, but I've not enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'd put the price of tomorrow as similar to Bitcoin Hard Money You Can't Fuck With, in terms of, that type of book. So it's a really good one that you can easily listen to. And I think it may have even listened. I think I've listened to it about 3 times. It's that good, because
I'll have to move on to that one, because, like you said, I just don't want to listen to the Jordan Peterson book.
No, I think it's his voice as well. Not great.
Right. I think we're actually on the last story, the Rector for the week. So a bit of a mixed one about this one. Mixed thoughts from me. So some guy who in New Zealand, so one of the prison islands, was following the investments of an Australian celebrity. They can say celebrity loosely, so cryptocurrency trader. And he's obtained a default judgment to get his money back. So he's following this guy, and the guy's completely fallen off a cliff. And I kind of like, these people are giving out financial advice who really have no clue and just saying, buy this, buy that. And I think we, in a way, someone in one of our groups was doing that. Well, he wasn't doing that. He was receiving advice, because he was saying, oh, you should buy Stellar, Litecoin and something. And I was just like, why the fuck are you doing that? You don't know anything about this market. And lo and behold, I think Stellar halved within the next couple of days, and we never heard anything since then about the wonders of Stellar and various cryptocurrencies which were making him so rich. But I think it's just your typical, what are you doing? Why are you doing trading?
Well, a lot of people that I know use eToro, and they obviously follow traders on there. The whole purpose of it is a social community, and those traders are pretty good. Hence the reason why they've got so many followers.
It's Nancy Pelosi on it.
Should be top of the leaderboard, wouldn't she, Nancy?
I'll be throwing all my Bitcoin on there to trade with her. She get me bigger gains.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you doing this week, Nancy? Let's follow you on that. But on the flip side of it, would it be possible for the finfluencer to sue anybody that made gains and get a percentage of the gains from them just for copying them? So would it work in the flip way of it? So let's say 100 people that copied them, and then he makes them money. Would he be entitled to their money?
Well, it's also sort of in Australia, so he doesn't have to do shit. I feel like it's just a judgment by New Zealand to try and look super woke, like, oh, you lose money, we can help you out. And it's just more like, how about don't be stupid, buy Bitcoin, or have fun staying poor?
Yeah. I mean, was he specifically reaching out to, I was trying to read the case.
He was following someone, and he transferred so he transferred Bitcoin and Ethereum to trade, and it looks like the guy just disappeared.
Yeah. Okay.
So you gave him money to invest in, like, basically, oh yeah, you'll diversify and you'll put it across this, so you'll get the peaks and whatever, and sell, then buy things, when they're low down. So you gave him the money, and and it's just going about, oh yeah, we can do all that, but the guy doesn't seem to be doing anything. And I think he could have lost all the money, and he's in Australia, and I think in Australia you can't pursue him. So it just seems like a pointless article by some idiot who should have known better. Like, he had Bitcoin, he had 265,000 Australian No, is it Australian dollars?
Yeah, Australian dollars. Yeah, it's Australian dollars.
Or is it New Zealand's?
No, Australian.
So that's 130 grand in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's a sizable amount. Why are you fucking around telling someone to buy cum rocket for you? You've got to ask the question about how stupid are you? Do you deserve to have that Bitcoin? I don't think so.
Yeah. I guess as well, it just goes to show people's greed as well. Ultimately, he's built up a sizable portfolio. 100 grand plus isn't anything to be sniffed at. But then he thinks, oh, hold on, if I follow this influencer, maybe I can make more. But it's like people just lose their senses when it comes to money. And, that's just ridiculous. Why would you transfer all that money over to somebody that you've never met before in the hope that they're then going to return it back to you? Retard.
Yeah, exactly. So, I kind of hope that he doesn't get his money back to teach him a lesson. And I hope somehow that judgment gets destroyed and just says, don't be a retard next time.
Yeah.
And this Alex guy somehow gets a black mark against him. That would be my best course of action, is that they both lose, to teach them both a lesson.
I think that's a great place to end the pod right there. Whilst we've been going through all of this, I think episode 27 has been brought to you by Men in Black. I've been Will Smith. You've been Tommy Lee Jones, aka Dr. Evil 10%, so never look. Because, we've actually synchronized, haven't we, in terms of outfits, being Men in Black.
Yeah, very good point. I didn't ever think that. Yeah, it's black.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm always observatory. Mr. All In, would you have wore black? That would have been great. And Mrs. No Show, we can just imagine that you were in black as well. Maybe
apart from the white and green cup which he's holding.
I was just about to say, apart from that, black lace negligee holding a Starbucks cup. Maybe we can get some visuals on that through editing, Mr. All In. I'll leave that down to you. But we're going to sign out. This has been brought to you once again by Dr. Evil 10%, myself, Sir Never Look. She was here, but she was never here, Mrs. No Show, and Mr. All In, the 4 Bs, the world's most bullish podcast, episode 27. Peace out. Yeah, fellow plebs, if you want to hear us, then tune in.